very warm welcome, and thank you for joining me for an amazing look into the past of messages directly from Constantine the Great that has never been translated before. Constantine's association to the Chi-Rho symbol is indelibly written in history, as well as his historic Christian conversion. However, did everything really play out as it was written in the history books, or was history romanticized by the winner of a clandestine political religious war? Constantine's father, Constantius Chlorus, ruled as Roman emperor from 293 to 305 AD as Constantine I. His son Constantine, born Flavius Valerius Constantius in 272 AD, stepped into his father's shoes in 306 AD and ruled to his death in 337 AD. Both Constantine and his father started their careers as Roman army officers. In 312 AD, as Constantine prepared to face Maxentius in the Battle of Milvian Bridge outside Rome, he had a vision of a cross in the sky with the Greek inscription "In tutoi nika," which literally means "conquer by this." A miraculous message from the Christian God through his angels was given to Constantine, and this expression was then translated into Latin as "in hoc signo vinces," which translates into "in this sign you will conquer." Evidently, the following night, Constantine dreamt he should display this symbol as his military standard. This Chi-Rho martial symbol was purportedly displayed on helmets, shields, and banners as his military insignia for the up-and-coming battle. The Greek letters Chi-Rho are an X and P English-looking letters superimposed on each other. This symbol is called a labrum and symbolizes the first two letters of the Greek name Chrēstos, for the name Christ. In the time before Christ, this particular Chi-Rho symbol was an abbreviation called Chrēstos, used to mark passages of importance in the margin of a book. In modern Greek, Chrēstos means ethical, righteous, and good. Chrēstos is synonymous with the name Ticherium for the chicory plant that is added to your coffee, and is out of the Asteraceae family of flowers. Asteri, or astron, in Greek, and astrum in Latin is for star, constellation, glory, immortality, or heaven. The Chrēstos symbol is believed to have originated from the Phoenician letter tau, an X which represents an English letter T, or in Greek tau, T-A-U, and Teth, which represents an X inside a circle for an English letter Th, or in Greek theta. In Greek, tau signifies life and resurrection, and theta signifies death from the Greek word thatanos. The Phoenician letter tau means mark that I'm interpreting as a brand for a bull, and Teth means wheel and has the connotation of good. The Phoenician alphabet was developed circa 1400 BC and was the origin for a number of alphabets to include Latin and its associated Romanic languages, Hebrew, Aramaic, Coptic, and even Old Norse. The Phoenician letter Wav and its corresponding Hebrew letter Vav has been found in my translations because it means binding of heaven and earth, as above so below, and has been discovered to be a common theme in my translations. Amazingly, the Seal of Zion, dating 1289 AD, and the Kensington runestone, supposedly dating 1362 AD, displays Wav. After Constantine's victory over Maxentius, while flying the Chi-Rho banners, he attended his triumph in Rome and promptly left the city and did not return to Mother Rome until 326 AD. In 313 AD, Constantine promulgated the Edict of Milan, supposedly righting the wrongs against Christians while abolishing persecution and decreeing tolerance for the Christian faith and their God within the Roman Empire. Powers were granted to bishops to spread the Christian word, restorations occurred of pilgrimage sites, and eventual funding offered to build churches. 3 years later, in 315 AD, the Arch of Constantine in Rome was dedicated to his victory over Maxentius, but contained no reference to Christianity. One particular inscription considered him the liberator of the city, and another a founder of peace. Constantine included the flock of Christians into his empire as a political move to quiet disorder and gain power through influential bishops earning loyalty through his gifts. Constantine acquiesced to the bishop's wishes, but otherwise was disinterested in getting involved in religious politics. Now I think you desire to know what Constantine was really doing. It was evidently a well-known fact, even to the church officials in Rome, that Constantine never gave up his pagan worship. Before Constantine, the religion in vogue was the worship of the sun god Sol Invictus, the cult of the unconquered sun, who became the official Roman patron on December 25th in 274 AD, and was then followed by a Persian-based sun god named Mithras that was originally worshipped by Roman soldiers and is now known as the Mysteries of Mithras. Mithras and Christianity were so similar that controversially, no one was quite sure which religion was more influential over the other. To date, it's been reported over 400 sites have yielded objects related to the Mithras cult, 1,000 buried inscriptions, 700 bull-killing scenes, and 400 monuments. 680 Mithrium temples found in Rome alone have many churches erected on top of them. The Mithras religion spread far and wide by soldiers stationed in the far corners of the empire. Curiously, Mithras rivaled Christianity and competed with it for a couple hundred years. For your understanding, I'll digress and explain a brief history of Roman Mithras. The first and oldest Roman sun god Sol was the divine ancestor of Rome, who either disappeared or reappeared as the sun cult of Sol Invictus, and then Mithras became popular. Although Sol Invictus broke bread with Mithras in banquet relief scenes, it appears Mithras functioned more as an intermediary between heaven and earth. He is an exalted figure and likened to the divinity of an angel. Mithras originated from the ancient Persian worship of Zoroastrianism and their god of light and worship Ahura Mazda, one of the oldest surviving religions with teachings older than Buddhism, Judaism, Gnosticism, Greek philosophy, and is far older than Christianity and Islam. The singer Freddie Mercury came from a Parsi family who practiced Zoroastrianism. Persian Mitra, spelled with or without an H and with no S, was an offshoot with an ancient Persian Iranian religion founded by the prophet Zoroaster, circa 1500 to 1000 BC. Persian Mithra originated from a large pre-Zoroastrian pantheon of gods. In Sanskrit, the word Mitra means to bind as a covenant, contract, agreement, oath, promise, or commitment, as well as love and friendship, and has an element of justice and law with truth woven into it. Persian Mitra is described as wide pastures, 1,000 ears, myriad of eyes, lofty and everlasting, while being the infallible, eternally watchful, and never resting divine guardian. He is the overseer of truth, the custodian of cattle, harvests in their nurturing waters. A trinity was formed between Ahura Mazda, Lord of Wisdom, Persian Mitra, overseer of covenants, and Anahita, the ancient Persian goddess of fertility, healing, health, wisdom, and the deity of waters. The Zoroastrian calendar dedicated the 16th day of the month and the 7th month of the year to be under the protection of the Persian Mitra, and later he was co-identified with the sun. Persian Mitra and Roman Mithras are sun deities, comparable to the earliest father sky god Deus, Greco-Roman Olympian gods Zeus and Jupiter, and the Roman gods Sol and Sol Invictus. The prophet Zoroaster believed in one God, a moral and spiritual duality of good and evil, vying the supreme god Ahura Mazda against the evil spirit Ahriman. As you will see, this is about dualities. Some believe Mithras and Judaism merged into Christianity. Nevertheless, the similarities between Roman Mithras and Christianity are striking. Both are monotheistic beliefs with the practice of Eucharist and communion, 7 sacraments, and the idea of sacrifice, blood washing away sins, banishing evil, end times, and eternal life. Constantine played a major role in promoting Mithras by appointing the birth of Mithras on December 25th, the winter solstice, which is also the birthday of the other Roman god Sol Invictus, as well as Jesus's, and in fact, if anyone is keeping score, the Hindu deity Krishna. December 25th is the time when the first noticeable lengthening of daylight appears after the shortest day of the year. In addition, Constantine decreed Dies Solis, Day of Sun, Sunday, as the Roman day of rest. Banquets were held similar to the Christians' Last Supper after the killing of the bull. The struggle between good and evil, salvation, redemption, resurrection are themes carried throughout both religions. His birth was the alchemy of spirit to matter, materializing Mithras from rock. From inorganic mineral to organic living matter is actually how we were created on this earth, and it appears the Mithras followers understood this. Early on, most Romans considered Christianity a death cult because Mithras didn't die as a martyr. Unlike Christianity, salvation was not offered through suffering and dying. By decree of Constantine, Christianity became the official Roman religion in 324 AD. At that time, the ancient city of Byzantium became the capital of the Roman Empire, which was officially dedicated as Constantinople in 330 AD. In 331 AD, Constantine commissioned 50 Bibles in Greek for the bishops of Constantinople. Helena, Constantine's mother, became a Christian sometime after he became emperor, although there is no documentation of her baptism. Roman Mithras is clearly a sun and star god. In this particular relief, the wheel displays the 12 zodiac signs that surrounds the dramatic bull-killing scene called a tauroctony. A typical stone relief such as this has Mithras in the center slaying the bull. The accompanying inscription to this relief cites the retired veteran soldier Ulpius Silvanus of the 2nd Legion Augusta, who paid his vow to Mithras, thus reinforcing the fact that Mithras was the religion of the legions. Military conscription and Mithras vows appear to have gone hand in hand. At the entrance of the underground Mithraeum temples, displayed the killing scene of Mithras pulling the bull's nose back and impaling a knife into the bull's throat or shoulder, with the god Sol Invictus and the goddess Luna shown above, and a serpent, a scorpion, and a dog active in the scene, and at times a bird. He is typically flanked by 2 torchbearers. The symbolism of each will be explained. Why the symbolism of the zodiac sign of Taurus? The Roman Mithras god is acting out the killing of the bull in the Taurus constellation in the sky to symbolically mark the end of an era. Every 2,160 years, the sun's position at the time of the March-spring equinox moves in front of a new zodiac constellation. And also there's a change of the guiding North Star. Today the Earth is now supposedly entering the age of Aquarius. However, for the past 2,000 years, the sun has risen in Pisces, the fish constellation, symbolizing the birth of the Christian age. Prior to the age of Pisces was the age of Aries, the ram, symbolizing the approaching Christ, the Lamb, called Agnus Dei, Lamb of God in Latin. Before that, it was the age of Taurus the bull, which presided over the equinox, symbolizing storms and lightning. The Roman Mithras was a cosmic religion of stars, and Christianity is an earthly view of an obscure heaven. The Chi-Rho symbol is indelibly associated with Constantine. However, to this day, it appears no one has noticed that the Chi-Rho symbol can translate into words, secret messages left for posterity directly from Constantine that has never seen the light of day. These messages should bring new insight into the mysteries of Mithras. The first clue that the Chi-Rho symbol has hidden messages came from the word conquer. It appears the meaning of the word conquer in the Latin inscription in hoc signo vinces, by this sign you will conquer, has been misinterpreted. Conquer can refer to winning, victory, or defeating, but if you break the word conquer into its parts, con means with and cur means query, meaning to ask or inquire. The Latin verb concurre means to seek, hunt, or search, and it is from the verb querere, which means to seek, desire, or look for. Instead of the Christian God talking to Constantine, Constantine was talking to his audience by saying, "In this you will seek." Constantine is telling you to hunt for the messages. There are many variations of the Chi-Rho symbol carved in stone, but all have a circle around the Chi-Rho. Most of the time the Chi-Rho symbol has the Greek letters alpha for A, and omega for O, on the left and right respectively, in the circle. However, there is a slight anomaly between them. Alpha is an uppercase letter, or is a capital letter A, and omega is in the lowercase, or is a small letter O. One other feature that really drew my attention was a snake-like S winding around the center line at the bottom of the circle. I thought, why is this? The snake-like S winding around the central line at the bottom of the circle of the Chi-Rho symbol represents the rod of Asclepius. Asclepius is the legendary father of medicine, healing, and doctors. The centaur Chiron taught him the art of healing. Chiron, the wounded healer, who could heal everyone but himself, eventually gave up immortality for death. The god Hermes and demigod Asclepius shared serpent-style rods symbolic of life and rejuvenation, with Hermes' caduceus rod representing magic and power, and Asclepius' rod representing healing. As can be seen, the torch-bearer on the right of the snake altar in this Mithras relief is using Hermes' caduceus to spring water forth from the underground. Hermes' caduceus is symbolic of the world axis of time and space of all things, while Asclepius' rod of a single snake is symbolic of healing in the material world. For Asclepius was from both worlds, as the divine son of the Greek sun god Apollo and a mortal mother. Mistakenly, Hermes' caduceus seems to have been used as the symbol for modern-day medicine. The sacred art of healing seeks restoring health from bodily ills to bring peace to the soul from mind, body, and spirit curatives. Overall, modern allopathic medicine does not cure but uses drugs to induce environments where pathogens cannot exist, only masking the symptoms without seeking the source of the ailment. At the foot of the Acropolis in Athens was the sanctuary of Asclepius, and there were temples all over the Greco-Roman world that were called Asclepiums, where there were sacred springs for bathing and healing. The original Hippocratic oath began with the vow, "I swear by Apollo the physician, and by Asclepius, and by Hygeia and Panacea, and by all the god and goddesses." Apollo was Asclepius' father, and Hygeia and Panacea were Asclepius' daughters of hygiene and peace. At the Asclepiums, patients were led into tunnels with cubicles for them to stay the night, to have dreams and visions that were then used to facilitate diagnosis of their malaise. Non-venomous snakes were often used in healing rituals, and these snakes were called Asclepian snakes, which were allowed to roam freely on the floor where the sick and injured slept. His healing temples also used sacred dogs to lick wounds of the sick petitioners. This could explain the presence of the snake and the dog licking the wounds of the bull in the bull-killing scenes. In fact, Asclepian is known as the serpent-bearer. Asclepius' dwarf son, Tauros, was the fulfiller of healing, bringer of completion, meaning he ameliorated recovery and recuperation. The next morning, the patient ascended from the sleeping tunnel into the temple of Taurus to walk a meditative circular path and to bathe in spas located in cavernous vaults, supported by pillars around the circumference of the temple. The path walking reminds me of the harmonic numbers that I found in my Oak Island series, instructing you to metaphorically walk a labyrinth to a center location of interest on the island. The story goes that Asclepius could raise the dead from gifted blood of the severed head of Medusa, the Gorgon serpent, who turned onlookers into stone. Zeus killed Asclepius with a thunderbolt for learning the art of resurrection of the body, and he was put in the sky as the Ophiuchus constellation, called the serpent-bearer, and was thereafter revered as a god, even though he was only a semi-god before death. Constructed 330 AD, this marble relief found in Athens displays the reenactment of a family preparing to sacrifice a bull to Asclepius, as he sits next to his standing daughter Hygeia, the symbol of health. Constantine died in 337 AD, so he was alive when this relief was carved. Hygeia is standing tall to indicate health was restored, and thanks are being given by the gift of the bull. Mithraeum temples for Mithras worship were narrow cave or grotto-like temples. that look very similar to Asclepius's underground tunnels for sleeping. The entrances displayed the image of Mithra sacrificing the bull, and at the opposite end of the caves were a pedestal-style altar. The word altar comes from the Latin word altarium, meaning high. It's a place of religious rites and worship, and is also connected to the Latin word odolere, which means to ritually burn or sacrifice. Ritual meals were believed to be shared in these sanctuaries, and initiations conducted. The ceilings of some mithraeums were decorated with stars. I could babble on about the realm of subconscious meeting the conscious mind, but you can run with that idea. In my research, the translation for these Mithras caverns appeared more or less akin to a gap, hole, or hollow, along the line of the Latin word volta for cave, which also means to turn or spin or even orbit, as in the circular walking motion around Táwros' temples, and is associated to the Proto-Indo European word well, which refers to the notion of rolling, roiling, or bubbling water. Additionally, the word vault can also mean to spring, as in spring forth, and can refer to water leaping out of a gap, hole, or hollow in the rock, or the welling of water. The same words we use today had different meanings and contexts to the Romans. Let's compare the words well and will, since the letters E and I were interchangeable at the time due to being similar sounding letters. Well is to issue forth as water from the earth, to flow, to spring, and can also mean well as in healthy and strong versus sick and weak. The word will is the future tense of to be. Therefore, the compound word well-being, as we call it today, is a mixture of the two words well and will, and well-being literally means well to be. The Romans were seeking well-being from healing springs, contemplative dreams and visions, and meditative orbits around the temple, which all comes from the underground springs of our inner being. Now that we're familiar with Constantine's life activities, mysteries of Mithras, Asclepius' connection to healing, snakes, and sacred dogs, Asclepius' son Telephorus' revered powers, and the possible significance of the Mithras' underground sanctuaries, it's time to find out what messages Constantine left for posterity in the Chi-Rho symbol. The most obvious letters on the stone-carved Chi-Rho symbol spell out the word Rosa, going clockwise from the top. Rho is the Greek letter R, Omega is the Greek letter O. The next is a snake-like S for Asclepius, and the last is an A. The letters spell out Rosa, R-O-S-A, which is Latin for rose. I question if this represented reverence to the Virgin Mary, for she is considered the mother of roses. And then my ideas drifted to the Greek goddesses Aphrodite and her counterpart Venus, who are also associated with roses. Which are possibilities? Nevertheless, it appears Constantine is referring to the Roman custom sub rosa, the hanging of a rose overhead in a meeting or at the entrance of a meeting to indicate a pledge of confidentiality. Sub rosa in English means under the rose. To the Romans, the rose is symbolic of secrecy, commonly represented by the Tudor Rose. Constantine is telling you for a second time to search, for there are secrets to be found in the Chi-Rho symbol. Paintings of roses on the ceiling of Roman banquet rooms were also a reminder that things said under the influence of wine, sub vino, should also remain sub rosa. If you note on this particular Chi-Rho symbol, there are roses, the moon, and stars. So why the Tudor Rose, which wasn't emblematic of royalty in Europe for another 1,000 years? It wasn't until the Middle Ages between 500 and 1500 AD that the Christians had identified with the five-petal rose as the five holy wounds of Christ. To me, it appears that this could outline the 8-year orbit of the planet Venus, but we'll find out more about that later. Now let's find the letters for the words soul and solar from the Latin word solaris. I questioned why the Rho letter had such a long stem and wondered if it could represent an L or an I. If the center line represents an L, the next two Latin words that it spells are sol, meaning sun, and solar, meaning of the sun. Allow me to briefly explain the letter L before I go on. Greek lambda and Hebrew lamb stand for goad and prod of a shepherd's staff, and also means yoke, denoting to tie or bind. I found that theme of hook or to bind in most of my videos, as explained earlier with the Phoenician letter Wav and the Hebrew letter Vav. Now let's find the letters for the word astro in Latin. So if the X for the Chi represents a Phoenician Ta for T, the next word gleaned from the Chi-Rho symbol is astro, meaning star or constellation. Earlier we found out that the Chi-Rho was a marginal annotation symbol for the word Chrēstos. Let's take a second look at the Latin word Chrēstos, which means useful or good, and also represents the chicory plant out of a family of flowers that means star. While many languages were consonant-based, and when vowels were invented, they were more or less turned into wildcard sounds, and an E and an I were interchangeable because spellings were not standardized. People often spelled a word the way it sounded. So Constantine got this great idea that the E in Chrēstos should be changed to an I for the Latin name Christos or Christ, and it would be useful and good for his uses as a play on words. The appellation Christos is a Hebrew translation for Messiah, meaning anointed. The next word in the Chi-Rho symbol is an anagram of astro. If you move the astro letters around, you get rota or rotas in Latin, meaning wheel or wheels, as in a chariot, or the zodiac wheel, and also means to rotate. The Greek word for wheel is rota. Fortuna is the Roman goddess of fortune, and her wheel of fortune, rota fortuna, represents the capricious nature of fate. Her Greek equivalent, Tyche, was Constantine's guardian of the city of Constantinople. Statues of Constantine and Tyche have been found. Constantine seems to be an equal opportunist between the Roman and Greek versions of the gods and goddesses. To reveal the word Taurus, the lowercase omega turns into two U's, which is what it looks like, double U's, and for that matter, the many common derivatives of its spelling. Táwros, Táwros, Tauri, and Taur all mean bull. In my Oak Island translation, the word Tauri was discovered. Taurus is one of the oldest constellations. Ancient Mesopotamians fashioned artworks of gods, kings, and heroes, and went on to found cities and invent writing circa 3000 BC. Their most prominent artworks displayed bulls, lions, and scorpions, and subsequently Taurus, Scorpio, and Leo appeared in their artwork and cuneiform writings. Soon after, the Aquarius dropped into the picture to fill the fourth cardinal point in the fixed sky, defining solstices and equinoxes, sparking celebrations for the return of light, our connection to the sun, and our continued journey of enlightenment. In the spiritual realm, the initiates to Mithra's mysteries were realizing the path of their mystical soul's journey, as above, so below. In the material world, the return of light is of vital importance to the agricultural calendar, which in turn was heavily influenced by the mythologies of many countries, to include Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans. The next word, Mithras, comes from the Alpha and Omega that appear to be hanging as if mimicking the scales that represent the sign of Libra, signifying justice on the zodiac wheel. In fact, it appears they are the scales of justice. Have you ever noticed that the Libran scales are the only non-living sign on the zodiac wheel that does not represent an animal or a human? This is because the sign of Libra was created by Julius Caesar circa 50 BC. Previously, there was 11 signs. 2 signs occupied the body of the scorpion and its huge claws for the sign of Scorpio. The symbol for Libra is a Greek uppercase omega, with a line under it signifying the horizon, and the sun rising due east over the equator at the beginning of the sign of Libra during the autumnal equinox. Due to precessional shifting, which causes the seasons, today Libra is physically 24 days away from the horizon at that time. To indicate Constantine understood these seasonal changes, he uses the rota clue to instruct you to physically rotate the wheel 180 degrees from equinox to equinox. And the lowercase omega now looks like a lowercase m, and the uppercase A has grown horns. The uppercase A for alpha was introduced by the Phoenicians to represent the head and horns of a bull, and means bull or oxen. Oxen is a castrated bull. After the era of Taurus, the bull bowed its head to Aries, and the bull was metaphorically castrated by the sting of a scorpion on the testicles as seen on the reliefs, thus turning the bull into an ox. In fact, the letter A in most Semitic languages means ox. The Greek spelling for Mithras, using the letter theta for th, is a second way to translate Mithras and symbolizes death from the word thetanos. The Chi-Rho symbol displays the symbolic duality of the Greek tau and theta letters for life and death. The last word found in the Chi-Rho symbol that I find valid is oros, from ancient Greek that was adopted in situ into the Greek and Latin languages, and means hour, season, year, or time of life, such as youth. There's a rather complicated ancient Greek grammatical rule that the letter R is followed by H, as in the spelling of Rho for the letter R. The research that I did used the example for the spelling of the island of Rhodes. The Greek and Romanized spelling of Rhodes is R-O-D-O-S, without an H. However, the ancient Greek spelling is R-H-O-D-O, with an H, and surprisingly means rose. The island's name is presumably derived from Erode, which is Phoenician for snake, since the island was home to many snakes in antiquity. On the southeastern part of Rhodes, there is a small village named Asclepius. Therefore, if Rho in the Chi-Rho symbol is RH, the word aura or oros appears. In reality, the ancient Greek spelling of aura can dispense with the H for oros. Constantine is telling you that Mithras understood that the earth is tilted, thus causing the seasons. If the earth was not tilted, there would be no seasons and would have the same weather at the same locations in perpetuity. The concept of the rotation of the wheel is a very important discovery because Constantine is conveying that the Mithras members understand the earth is revolving around the sun. Before you rotate the wheel, you're standing on the earth, and the earth is the center of the universe from your perspective, and the sun's apparent path around the earth is called the ecliptic plane. After you rotate the wheel, the outer circle is the earth revolving around the sun, which reflects the mechanics of the real world as we know it. The sun is the center of our universe, with the wandering planets orbiting the sun. Evidently, this knowledge of the universe required the Mithras members to impose sub rosa, and for good reason, because nobody probably would believe it. Human ego is way too large to believe that the earth is not the center of our universe. In 1610, Galileo published a small book called The Starry Messenger, contending that the sun is the center of the universe, thus relegating the earth to a mere planet that orbits this huge ball of fire. The Holy See of the Roman Inquisition put Galileo on trial for heresy and exiled him to house arrest for over a decade until his death. As ridiculous as this sounds, the church could not stand for the plebeians to have such blasphemous thoughts that could possibly cause unrest and the fine-tuned obedience that the church expected. Although you can make a myriad of other words from these letters, such as aeolus for winds for air, lithos for stone for earth, lampsi for lamp for fire, pathos for the watery flow of emotions, to cover all the basic elements of air, earth, fire, and water. Otherwise, the majority of the combination are just gibberish. However, if you divide the circle down the center, you can make a C and a D. But I'll leave that for anyone with the perseverance to continue this quest, or run a computer matrix program. So how does all this bull affect you today? In antiquity, cattle were considered their source of mobile wealth on hoof that supplied resources and food. It's not a far stretch of the imagination that the words caput and capitalis in Latin mean head or head of, and translates into head of cattle, and is the origin of our word capital, which implies money and wealth. The word stock for cattle is where the name stock market sprang, to mean ownership of cattle and sheep. One must understand that people thought differently, and words had different meanings way back when. The Latin root picu means property, as in cattle, and pecuna means money, and is the origin of the word peculiar. In the olden days, when something was peculiar to you, was owned by you. The concept of wealth coincided with the possession of cattle, which is now synonymous with credit card transactions and money spent from assets earned or won. To the ancient farming people, wealth was measured in cattle. Cattle were their lives. Stay tuned for part 2, where Mithras' identity will be revealed and the constellations associated to the Mithras religion will be explained. This story even gets more interesting. If you enjoyed this video, Please like and ring the bell, share, subscribe, and comment to support my channel. I would very much appreciate your support.